Hey everyone, welcome to the KE Report, a company update from District Metals. We're going to be getting a general update on the company's projects in Sweden, a large land package of polymetallic and base metal projects, as well as some energy metals mixed in. Also, the listing on the Nasdaq First North Growth Market in Sweden, how that's progressing, and an update on the Uranium Moratorium in Sweden. I am chatting again with Garrett Ainsworth, President and CEO of District Metals. District is traded DMX on the TSX Venture Exchange, DMXCF on the OTCQB, and DFPP on the Frankfurt Exchange. Now, Garrett, let's start off with a little reminder for everybody on the company's projects in Sweden. First of all, recent news release that you came out with at the end of November was just outlining that District is the second largest cumulative exploration land package in Sweden, spread across a portfolio of projects. So again, tell everybody about the focus in Sweden on these different metals within this portfolio, please.
Yeah, absolutely, Corey. Great to be on with you. Yeah, so I'd say that the majority of our valuation has been placed with our Viken property. That holds the Viken deposit. It's an alum shale or black shale deposit. It's got uranium, vanadium, potash, other energy metals like nickel, molybdenum, copper, and zinc, and potential for rare earths as well. So it's actually the second largest uranium deposit in the world, or the largest undeveloped uranium deposit in the world, depending on how you look at it. But the largest uranium deposit in the world right now is Olympic Dam, which again is also it's fairly low grade uranium, somewhat like the Viken deposit, but it's polymetallic at Olympic Dam with copper and some gold and other metals. So yeah, we did some great work at Viken this past summer. We're kind of moving it along slowly, along with our other alum shale properties in Sweden, which make up a big portion of our mineral license holding in Sweden. So with the idea there of trying to find another Viken deposit, they're just earlier stage projects. And then, of course, we have three other more primary uranium projects. They do have like some secondary energy metals, and that's Sockjärn, Nianfors, and Ardnasvarre. So yeah, we've continued to do a little bit of field work here and there, get ready for when the moratorium might lift, and continue with historical compilation work and whatnot. But then on our base metal polymetallic side, we've got our Tomtebo project, and that's also in collaboration with Boliden's Stålberg project. So about a year ago, Boliden agreed to enter this agreement with us, where they're funding $10 million Canadian over 4 years. We're basically just completed the first year. We drilled Tomtebo earlier this year, returned the best intercept from that program. I think we reported that in July was about 29 meters of about 7.4% zinc equivalent. And then we're currently drilling the Stålberg project, which is about 35 kilometers to the southwest of the Tomtebo project. And we're drilling about 2,200 meters in 5 or 6 holes. And then we hope to put out the drill assay results in the first quarter of 2025.
So when it comes to the uranium polymetallic properties spread across Sweden, you were really the first mover into Sweden to start tying up some of these assets. Now that, first and foremost, uranium has gotten a whole lot more life in that sector, and there's been a lot more talk about Sweden lifting that moratorium on uranium mining. What's the environment like for the company District Metals to potentially pick up more assets in Sweden?
Yeah, we continue to kind of look at other uranium projects, whether it's as open ground, or there's a number of other private companies or individuals that own uranium mineral licenses in Sweden. I think a lot of people now are just kind of the wait and see with the moratorium. And then something else to consider is there's been some thought that potentially the uranium moratorium could get lifted just for uranium as a byproduct, which would be good for our Viken property and the Viken deposit, because that uranium is a byproduct. But it would not be very good for a uranium project where, yeah, uranium's the primary metal. So it could be a two-step process how they lift the moratorium, where it's first as uranium as a byproduct and then uranium as a primary. So there are a lot of other projects kind of out there. I'm very, very happy with the ones that we have. And I think, looking at acquiring any from other companies would probably wait until we get a line of sight on the moratorium being lifted.
So in the meantime, then, with some of the work you're doing at these uranium projects, anything that you're going to be news releasing that we should watch out for in terms of some sort of growth catalyst from any of these assets?
No, as it stands now, like the uranium projects were in a somewhat of a holding pattern. We're going to look at potentially doing some airborne geophysical work next year, but that's not approved by any means, to just kind of help, move them along. But the game plan is we need to see clarity on the uranium moratorium before starting an updated preliminary economic assessment on the Viken project, because obviously, we want to make sure the moratorium is lifted before, spending that kind of money.
Okay. Now, on those base metals projects, the ones that you're working with Boliden on, look, drilling is ongoing. We're going to get some assays early next year, as you said. But big picture strategy here, I know from talking to you, it really sounds like a multi-year plan. So what does that multi-year plan look like?
Yeah, so the first year with Boliden, the budget was $2 million. And I think it was a really good year for getting to, get to know each other, work together. And I'd say it's been a huge success. The combined technical team has been amazing. So I think given the success, hopefully that, next year maybe we'll have an increased budget. And then we look to, do more drilling at Tomtebo, like not just at the historic Tomtebo mine, but also in the middle of the property where there's some mineral occurrences with good geophysical anomalies. And then also up at the northeast end, we've been looking at targeting up there for drilling maybe next year at the Lovas mine, which we've never drilled that. I don't think it's been really drilled since the 1970s. So I think, the next 3 years for Tomtebo and for Stolberg are going to be very drill intensive. And, that's one of the benefits that both these projects, they have basically all the geophysics done that you could ask for, along with, a lot of prospecting, mapping, geochemical sampling that's done. So it's really testing the targets that have been developed from all that work that's being done in compilation.
Okay, that's the more exciting part for shareholders, is the actual drilling then of some of these targets. So sounds like that'll happen in the next couple of years. Actually, let's talk quickly about that uranium moratorium in Sweden. We've touched on it, or you've mentioned it a little bit when we were talking about those uranium properties, but when could we see this happen? What's been some of the developments for the lifting of this moratorium?
Great question. And I get asked this almost every single day. So I know it well. I know politics in Sweden almost better than politics in Canada. It's been a busy year, with relatively busy on the uranium moratorium front. Like in February of this year, the government put out a press release that they'd started an investigation into lifting the moratorium. And this was more about, figuring out the legal framework on lifting it, not whether it should be lifted or not. There's already been multiple statements by the Swedish government that they intend to lift the uranium moratorium. So this investigation report came out in May, and everyone was kind of expecting for it to become public. It did not. The share price kind of took a bit of a hit from the lack of communication from the government. And then we heard rumors that it could be coming out in late August, and that again did not happen. And so we've been kind of hearing like it could happen any day, any week, any month. And in the meantime, we put out news, I think it was November 15th, that we had found some parliament meeting records where the Minister of Environment again stated that the government intends to lift the uranium moratorium, and that was on October 11th. And then on November 19th, there was the SVEMIN meeting, the annual meeting. That's the Swedish Mining Association. And the state of secretary for the Ministry of Environment got up on stage and said very boldly that we will lift the uranium moratorium. So and that's maybe 2 weeks ago that happened. So it's still, everything appears to be on track. They keep talking about it, that they're going to do it. My understanding is once this press release comes out with the inquiry results, then a consultation period starts, and it could be like 3 months long is probably the maximum. And then that gives time for stakeholders to comment on the lifting of the moratorium. And then after that, proposed bill can go to Parliament, and there is a majority. Our understanding is there is a majority in the government to approve a proposed bill to lift the uranium moratorium. So when that happens, that gives us the line of sight that we need to go full speed ahead on, starting an updated PEA on Viken, and starting to get the drill rig out and all that kind of fun stuff for the other uranium exploration projects that we have in Sweden.
Yeah, that's when stuff can really ramp up for you, right? So I guess we're still waiting for that moratorium to be lifted, but Garrett, every time I have you on the show, I'm going to ask you for an update on that. Let's also talk about that listing on the Nasdaq First North Growth Market in Sweden. Any clarity on if this is going to happen before the end of the year?
We hope so. Yeah, so we've submitted our official application to the Nasdaq First North Growth Market Exchange. I believe that happened on November 18th. I mean, we spent much of the summer pulling everything together. We had our kickoff meeting with the Nasdaq. And so far guidance still remains from all parties that hopefully we will be trading on the Nasdaq before the end of the year.
So Garrett, what will this open up potentially for the company in terms of new shareholders, current shareholders, anything on hopefully the buying front for the shares?
Yeah, it's a totally untapped pool of capital as far as I can see. It's really exciting, I think, for District to enter the Nasdaq. I mean, currently we have over 1,000 shareholders that are Swedish, and it's my understanding that most, like the big banks in Sweden and also in the Nordics, they don't allow their clients to buy foreign stocks on like the TSX Venture if they're less than $1 US per share. So that makes it kind of challenging. So now by getting this Nasdaq listing, it allows Swedish people and Nordic people to make it much easier for them to buy shares in District Metals. So, and then there's also family offices in the Nordics and funds that have rules that they can't invest on the TSX Venture, or they have to kind of stay focused on Nordic stock exchanges. So I think it makes it a lot easier, and it gives one less excuse to not buy District Metals, considering we're operating in Sweden with very exciting uranium polymetallic and base metal polymetallic projects, and there's just really not a lot of competition there. Like in terms of other junior mineral resource companies, it's leading edge minerals. And First Nordic Metals, I think they're coming in. They just put out news that they'll be joining us on the Nasdaq in the new year. So, but who knows? Maybe it's a trend. Maybe we'll see more companies starting to come on to the Nasdaq.
Maybe we will see. Well, hey, when you list, I'll follow up with you then. And what sort of potential buying that could bring in? Interesting to hear just the restrictions that some of those Swedish individuals have for buying certain stocks. Garrett, thank you very much for the update. Again, Garrett Ainsworth, President and CEO of District Metals. Click the link in the show notes to learn more about District Metals, read over the recent news, and send me any questions you have for Garrett. Garrett, thanks for the update today.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, Corey.